Part 1. I do not actually like the term atheism. The moment you give a name to a way of thinking, it is placed on the same level as religions, other dogmatic belief systems, mythologies, or rigid worldviews. Once that happens, people begin to assume that atheism itself must be a belief system, a moral doctrine, or even something that includes rituals or fixed rules. These assumptions create deep misunderstandings before any real conversation even begins. This way of thinking about atheism is so widespread that, despite my constant efforts to explain otherwise, I often struggle to make myself understood, even by people who genuinely want to understand and convey this perspective to others. I have experienced this repeatedly, including during interviews with newspapers. No matter how clearly I insist that atheism is not a belief system in the religious sense, many people still prefer to interpret it that way. And yet, this raises a simple and important question. If people who do not believe in Zeus from ancient Greek mythology, Thor from Norse mythology, or the gods of Aboriginal belief systems are not given any special label, why is a specific term reserved only for those who do not believe in the God of the so-called heavenly religions? Isn't the absence of belief the most natural, basic, or default position to begin with? From the perspective of those who define atheism not as an active rejection of theism, but simply as the absence of belief in a God, every human being is born an atheist. People learn religion later, shaped by the society and culture into which they are born. This is why the overwhelming majority of people follow the religion of their parents and the culture they grew up in. Even many atheists, in my view, may be intellectually or philosophically atheist, yet still carry cultural and traditional traces of the society in which they were raised. Because the meaning of atheism, where it begins, what it includes, and what it does not include, is poorly understood, and especially because it is largely unknown within society, there exists a significant amount of prejudice and hostility toward atheism and atheists. A major factor behind this is the persistent effort of religious groups who feel threatened by atheist ideas. These groups continuously promote negative portrayals and misinformation about atheism and atheists. Since atheists rarely have a strong public voice in many societies, people often learn about atheism not from atheists themselves, but from their ideological opponents, religious figures, preachers, or individuals assumed to be authorities on faith. Naturally, an understanding of atheism gained from such sources is unlikely to be objective. As a result, many people carry a caricatured image of what an atheist supposedly is. In this image, atheists are portrayed either as immoral individuals with no ethical concerns, people who could easily commit crimes because they do not believe in divine justice, or as shallow, rebellious young people who adopt atheism out of imitation and whose arguments can supposedly be defeated with ease. For many, it is almost unimaginable that atheists could be ordinary people, individuals with respectable professions, families, children, ethical principles, and respect for the law. The reason for this misconception is simple: atheism is rarely explained by atheists themselves. Instead, it is defined and narrated by those who oppose it. This is precisely why the content of this work matters. What atheism is, how it should be understood, what kind of people atheists are, what they believe or do not believe, and on what grounds they base their views, these are all subjects that need to be explained clearly and honestly. Returning once more to the term atheist, even though assigning a label to people who do not believe in heavenly religions is questionable and personally unappealing to me, I am willing to accept it. When belief systems and religious worldviews are viewed through the lens of modern science and rational inquiry, those perspectives inevitably remain at odds with the dominant beliefs of society. Societies are accustomed to labeling groups they see as minorities or outsiders, and atheists are no exception. It is as if our perspective is considered strange or excessive, when in reality, it is simply different. But what is the alternative? What should we call ourselves? Throughout history and across cultures, intellectually informed individuals familiar with contemporary scientific knowledge have almost always rejected ancient mythological beliefs. This is true regardless of geography. In Western societies, many people who dislike the term atheist have tried to define themselves using other labels, terms such as freethinker, skeptic, humanist, non-theist, or bright. These alternatives have been widely adopted by certain groups. Yet, when the subject turns to Christianity or other dominant religions, these individuals are almost always categorized as atheists by others, regardless of the labels they prefer. For this reason, I do not avoid the term. I do not believe avoiding it is helpful. No matter what I call myself, as long as I reject the existence of the God described by heavenly religions and argue that these religions are human-made, I will be perceived as an atheist. Therefore, my intention is simple, to present the ideas that lead people like me to this conclusion clearly, directly, without fear, without unnecessary softening, but also with respect, without insulting beliefs or attacking individuals. I will not shy away from the term atheism. Instead, I will confront the prejudices and misunderstandings attached to it. Whether this effort will have a broad impact is uncertain. Reading habits are limited, and it is unclear how many people will encounter this work. But I believe that those who do read it will be surprised. They will encounter arguments grounded in logic and science, and when they finish reading, they will no longer view either religion or atheism in quite the same way as before. Part 2. Frequently asked questions, a calm explanation. One of the most common questions asked is simple on the surface, yet complex in meaning. What is atheism? Atheism is the rejection of belief in a God, particularly the God described by theistic traditions. It does not necessarily mean claiming absolute certainty that no God could exist. Rather, it means not accepting the claim that such a God does exist. Some atheists argue that the existence of theistic gods cannot be demonstrated, and therefore, like any unsupported claim, it should be rejected by default. Others go further and argue that certain definitions of God can be shown to be logically impossible or internally contradictory. Regardless of the reasoning, the conclusion remains the same: the belief in a theistic God is not accepted. The key point here is the definition of God. As discussions around belief expanded with the rise of the Internet, one thing became increasingly clear: when people say God, they often mean very different things. As a result, an atheist's response depends entirely on which God concept is being discussed. Importantly, atheism does not deny the existence of an idea in the human mind. Concepts like gods, mythical creatures, or legendary beings clearly exist as ideas. What is rejected is the claim that such ideas correspond to something that exists in the external, physical world. This is no different from rejecting the real-world existence of characters like Santa Claus, phoenixes, or unicorns. These concepts are well-defined and widely recognized, yet their existence is rejected simply because there is no evidence that they exist outside imagination. In some cases, rejection goes even further. Certain concepts are not only unsupported but actively contradict known laws of nature or logic, making their existence impossible rather than merely unproven. When it comes to God concepts, atheists apply the same reasoning. Depending on how a God is defined, the response may range from "there is no evidence" to "this cannot logically exist." There is also a third perspective worth mentioning. In some cases, the concept of God itself is so vague, contradictory, or poorly defined that it fails to form a coherent idea at all. In philosophy, this is sometimes referred to as agnosticism. From this perspective, if a concept cannot even be meaningfully defined, then discussing its existence becomes pointless. Many atheists see this as yet another reason to reject belief. This leads to another question: can someone who has never encountered the concept of God be considered an atheist? Some argue yes. If atheism simply means the absence of belief, then such individuals fit the definition. However, the more common view is that atheism involves an active rejection, meaning the person has considered the idea and consciously dismissed it. Are there different types of atheism? Several philosophers have proposed distinctions within atheism, often dividing it into negative, or weak, atheism, and positive, or strong, atheism. Negative atheism holds that belief in God is rejected because there is no sufficient evidence. It does not necessarily claim that a God is impossible, only that there is no reason to believe. Positive atheism, on the other hand, argues that the existence of God is not merely unproven but impossible, often due to logical contradictions, incoherent definitions, or absurd implications. In simpler terms, negative atheism says, I do not believe because there is no proof. Positive atheism says, I believe this cannot exist. Despite this distinction, both positions fall under atheism because they share the same outcome, the absence of belief in God. In recent years, many atheists have moved away from these rigid categories. The reason is simple: responses often change depending on the specific God being discussed. One may take a strong rejection toward a traditional, interventionist God while remaining unconvinced, but less assertive, about more abstract philosophical concepts of divinity. Because of this flexibility, modern atheism is better understood as a position rather than a doctrine. How is atheism different from other non-belief views? There are several belief-related positions often confused with atheism. Agnosticism claims that there is insufficient evidence to know whether God exists or not. Some agnostics still choose to believe, while others choose not to. Those who do not believe are often described as agnostic atheists. Deism accepts the idea of a creator but rejects organized religion. According to deism, the universe was created but left to operate on its own, without divine intervention. Pantheism identifies God with the universe itself. Everything that exists is considered part of God. This view removes God from the supernatural realm and places it entirely within nature. Is atheism a worldview or philosophy? Atheism does not attempt to explain the universe. It is not a comprehensive philosophy, moral system, or political ideology. Two atheists may agree entirely on the God question while holding completely opposite views on politics, ethics, or meaning in life. However, many atheists tend to rely on scientific explanations for questions about the universe, life, and human origins. This is not because atheism requires it, but because science provides reliable, testable answers where possible. Questions such as the origin of the universe, the emergence of life, or the nature of consciousness are approached through scientific inquiry rather than supernatural explanations. Why do people become atheists? People who critically examine religious claims and are able to overcome early emotional conditioning often come to see religions as human-made systems and gods as conceptual constructs similar to other myths. The greatest obstacle in this process is rarely intellectual, it is psychological and social. Fear, pressure, identity, and belonging play powerful roles. Once these barriers are overcome, rejecting belief becomes a natural step. Contrary to popular belief, most atheists do not reject God out of anger, rebellion, or resentment. One cannot hate something they do not believe exists. Discomfort with religious institutions may motivate questioning, but it does not serve as evidence. Do atheists have morals? The idea that morality requires belief in God is one of the most persistent misconceptions. Morality does not originate from religion. Ethical systems can, and do, exist independently of religious belief. Many secular moral frameworks are based on empathy, reason, social well-being, and harm reduction. Statistical data consistently shows that atheists, on average, commit fewer crimes and often demonstrate strong social responsibility. This is not because atheism enforces morality, but because the factors that lead people toward atheism, education, critical thinking, and social stability, also correlate with ethical behavior. Part 3. On death, silence, and the question of meaning. Meditative narration. Let us slow down for a moment. Let us step away from arguments, from debates, from the noise of certainty. and let us approach the subject gently. One of the deepest fears behind belief is the fear of death. Not simply the fear of dying, but the fear of ending. Many people ask, if there is no God, if there is no afterlife, then what happens when we die? From what we can understand through science, through observation, through everything we know today, when the body stops, we return to the same state we were in before we were born. The atoms that make us do not disappear. They change form. Carbon returns to carbon. Nitrogen returns to nitrogen. Energy continues its journey. But awareness ends. There is no darkness, no waiting, no emptiness to feel. Because feeling itself requires a working brain. The mind fades. The way a flame fades. When the fuel is gone. Not violently. Not painfully. Simply. Quietly. The idea of a soul separate from the body has always been emotionally comforting. But comfort is not evidence. Every experience we associate with the soul, memory, emotion, personality, judgment, changes when the brain changes. A blow to the head can erase a lifetime of memories. A chemical can alter personality. A disease can transform identity. If the soul were independent, none of this would make sense. What people call the soul is the name we give to the brain doing what brains do. And when the brain stops, there is no longer anything there to experience fear, or peace, or regret. There is simply no one left to experience anything at all. This is often perceived as frightening, but only because we imagine death as something to be experienced. It is not. Death is not an event in life. It is the absence of experience. Like the billions of years before you were born. Were those years painful? Were they dark? Were they frightening? No. They were nothing at all. And nothing cannot hurt. Meaning without eternity. Another quiet question follows. If there is no eternal life, then what is the meaning of this one? For many, meaning feels fragile without infinity behind it. But meaning does not come from duration. It comes from presence. A song does not lose its beauty because it ends. A sunset does not become meaningless because it fades. Love does not lose its value because it is temporary. In fact, impermanence is what gives things weight. If life were endless, every moment could be postponed forever. Nothing would be urgent. Nothing would be precious. Meaning is not handed down from the sky. It is created here, now, between conscious beings. Meaning is found in connection, in curiosity, in kindness, in understanding. Not because a God commands it, but because suffering is real and empathy exists. Who created us? Another question arises, quietly. If no God created us, then who did? This question carries an assumption that everything must be created. But creation implies intention. And intention implies a mind. Nature does not work that way. The universe does not behave like a story with an author. Stars form because matter behaves according to physical laws. Life emerges when conditions allow it. Not because it is planned, but because it is possible. Evolution does not aim. It filters. What survives continues. What does not, ends. No purpose is required. Only time. Asking who created the universe? May not even be the right question. A better one might be. Has the universe always existed in some form? Or did it change from one state to another? Science explores these questions carefully. And where it does not yet have answers, it does not invent them. Silence is sometimes more honest than certainty. Why do so many believe? If gods are human ideas, why have so many believed in them? Because humans fear uncertainty. Because we seek patterns. Because we are aware of our own fragility. Belief systems provided structure in a chaotic world. They gave comfort. They gave order. They gave authority. They unified tribes. They justified power. They explained the unknown before better explanations existed. None of this requires gods to be real. Only that belief in them served a function. A quiet acceptance. Atheism, at its core, is not rage, not rebellion, not emptiness. It is acceptance. Acceptance that we do not know everything. Acceptance that not every question has a comforting answer. Acceptance that meaning is something we participate in creating. There is no divine plan watching over you. But there is also no cosmic judge waiting to condemn you. There is just this moment, this breath, this awareness. And that is enough. Part 4. Order, Design, and the Illusion of Intention. Meditative narration. Look around you. The universe appears ordered, predictable, structured. Planets follow paths. Seasons repeat. Life grows, adapts, changes. For many, this sense of order feels intentional. As if someone must be arranging things behind the scenes. But order does not require a planner. Order can emerge from simplicity. What we call laws of nature are not rules written into reality. They are descriptions. They are the language we use to summarize patterns we observe. When something happens consistently, we name it. We describe it. We call it a law. But nothing in nature is obeying anything. Nature does not follow commands. It behaves. The universe does not know that gravity exists. Objects simply move the way they move. Why there is something instead of nothing. Many people feel that nothingness should be the natural state. That existence needs explanation, while non-existence does not. But this is an assumption. There is no reason to believe that nothingness is more natural than existence. We have never observed nothingness. We do not know what it means for absolute nothing to exist. Existence is the only thing we have ever encountered. And because we exist, we ask why. But asking why does not always make sense. Some things may simply be. Not because they were chosen. Not because they were designed. But because there is no alternative state we can meaningfully compare them to. The illusion of design. When we see complexity, we instinctively think of intention. A watch implies a watchmaker. A painting implies a painter. But these comparisons come from our world, a world where humans create objects. The universe is not an object inside a larger workshop. It is the workshop. Complexity does not imply design when complexity can emerge naturally. Snowflakes form intricate patterns without a sculptor. Crystals arrange themselves without guidance. Life evolves structure without foresight. What survives continues. What fails disappears. No planning required. Only time and countless variations. Fine-tuning and perspective. Some say the universe is finely tuned. That physical constants seem precise. That a small change would make life impossible. This sounds persuasive until we reverse the perspective. Life does not shape the universe. Life adapts to the universe. If conditions were different, different forms of matter might exist. Different structures. Different possibilities. We observe this universe because this is the one we can exist in. It is not surprising that reality allows observers. Observers can only appear where observation is possible. This is not design. It is selection. Just as puddles fit the shape of the hole they occupy, life fits the conditions it finds itself in. Purpose and projection. Humans are meaning-making creatures. We project intention onto randomness. We search for stories where there are only processes. This is not a flaw. It is a survival trait. But when projection becomes belief, we mistake comfort for truth. The universe does not care if we exist. And that is not cruelty. It is neutrality. Meaning is not given. It is made. A calm conclusion. There is no master plan hidden behind the stars. No script unfolding in secret. No cosmic audience judging each action. There is only this unfolding reality, moment by moment. And within it, conscious beings capable of understanding, of compassion, of choice. That is not emptiness. That is freedom. Part 5. Cause, beginning, and the comfort of answers. Meditative narration. There is a thought that feels almost instinctive. Everything must have a cause. It feels reasonable. It feels safe. It gives structure to uncertainty. So when people look at the universe, they often ask, what caused all of this? What was the first cause? And quickly, that cause is named. A God. But let us slow down. Because this idea contains a quiet contradiction. If everything needs a cause, then the God that caused everything must also need one. And if that God does not need a cause, then the rule has already been broken. Once the rule is broken, we must ask, why break it there? Why not allow the universe itself to exist without a cause? The first cause problem. The idea of a first cause does not solve the problem of causality. It merely moves it one step further away. Instead of asking why does the universe exist, we now ask why does God exist? And no answer is given, only an exception. Exceptions are not explanations. They are comforts. When causality stops making sense. Causality is a concept that works inside the universe. Time flows. Events follow events. But when we speak about the origin of everything, time itself becomes part of the question. Before time, before loses meaning. Asking what came before the universe may be like asking what is north of the North Pole. The question assumes a framework that no longer applies. Sometimes, the most honest answer is silence. God as an explanation. An explanation should simplify. It should reduce mystery, not multiply it. But introducing a God adds new unanswered questions. What is this God made of? How does it exist? How does it act without time? Why does it have intentions? Why does it care? None of these questions are answered by saying God. They are postponed. God becomes a label placed over ignorance. Not a solution. The weight of simplicity. In science, the better explanation is the one that assumes less. Not because it feels better, but because it explains more with fewer assumptions. A universe that exists because it exists is simpler than a universe created by a being whose existence itself requires explanation. Simplicity is not emptiness. It is clarity. Living without ultimate answers. Some fear that without final answers, life becomes unstable. But uncertainty has always been part of being human. We lived with uncertainty long before gods were named. And we will continue to live with it long after many answers change. Not knowing everything does not mean knowing nothing. It means being honest about the limits of knowledge. A quiet perspective. There may be things we will never understand, not because we failed, but because understanding has boundaries. This is not defeat. It is humility. And humility is calmer than certainty. Part 6. Belief, fear, and the human mind. Meditative narration. Belief does not begin with logic. It begins with emotion. With uncertainty. With vulnerability. with the quiet awareness that life is fragile. The human mind evolved to search for patterns, to seek intention, to prefer explanations over silence. This is not a weakness. It is a survival trait. When early humans heard a sound in the dark, assuming intention was safer than assuming randomness. A mind that expects agency survives longer. Over time, this tendency grew deeper. Storms were no longer weather. They were anger. Disease was no longer biology. It was punishment. Death was no longer an ending. It was a transition. Belief filled the gaps where knowledge did not yet exist. Control and comfort. Belief systems offer something powerful. Control. Or at least, the feeling of it. When events feel chaotic, belief introduces order. When suffering feels meaningless, belief assigns purpose. When death feels final, belief offers continuation. These ideas soothe anxiety. They calm the mind. They create structure in an unpredictable world. But emotional usefulness is not the same as truth. A comforting story can still be a story. Fear of meaninglessness. One of the deepest fears is not pain. It is insignificance. The fear that our lives do not matter. Belief responds to this fear by placing humans at the center of existence. Chosen, observed, judged, remembered. But meaning does not require an audience. A life matters because it is lived. Because it affects others. Because consciousness is rare and fragile. No external validation is required. Why letting go is difficult. Questioning belief often feels like loss. Loss of certainty. Loss of identity. Loss of belonging. For many, belief is not just an idea, it is community, culture, family. Letting go can feel like isolation. This is why disbelief is rarely sudden. It unfolds slowly, quietly, often painfully, and always personally. A gentle understanding. Atheism does not require hostility toward believers. Understanding belief does not mean mocking it. People believe for human reasons. Fear, hope, tradition, love. Recognizing this allows compassion, not superiority. Choosing honesty. Some choose belief because it feels safer. Others choose honesty, even when it is uncomfortable. Neither path is effortless. But only one path allows reality to remain unexplained when it truly is. Atheism is not certainty. It is restraint. The decision to stop inventing answers when evidence ends. Part 7. Morality, kindness, and life without command. Meditative narration. Many people believe that without a God, there can be no morality. That without divine command, right and wrong dissolve. But morality did not begin with religion. It began with other people. With shared lives. With vulnerability. With the simple realization that pain feels the same in every conscious being. Long before written laws, long before sacred texts, humans cared for their young, protected their groups, and avoided harm. Not because a God commanded it, but because empathy existed. The roots of ethics. Morality grows from experience. From understanding that actions have consequences. From seeing suffering and choosing to reduce it. This does not require belief. It requires awareness. When we see another being capable of joy and pain, a question naturally arises. What would I want if I were in their place? This question is older than religion. Fear-based morality. Religious morality often relies on fear. Fear of punishment. Fear of judgment. Fear of eternal consequence. But fear does not create goodness. It creates obedience. A person who does good only because they are watched is not moral. They are cautious. True morality appears when no one is watching. When kindness is chosen without reward. Responsibility without excuses. Without divine authority, responsibility becomes personal. There is no one else to blame. No plan to hide behind. No cosmic excuse. Our actions matter because they affect real lives. Here. Now. This makes ethics heavier, but also more sincere. The myth of moral collapse. Societies with fewer believers do not collapse into chaos. They often become more stable, more equitable, more peaceful. Because morality grounded in human well-being is flexible. It adapts. It learns. It corrects itself. Dogma cannot do this. Compassion without conditions. A God-based morality often divides believers and non-believers, saved and unsaved, pure and impure. A human-centered morality includes. It recognizes suffering wherever it appears. No conditions. No exceptions. A quiet ethical view. You do not need eternity to be kind. You do not need commandments to care. You do not need fear to choose empathy. All you need is awareness that others feel as deeply as you do. Dash 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 dash. Part 8. Freedom, choice, and owning one's life. Meditative narration. Another quiet belief often hides behind faith. That everything happens for a reason. That every event is part of a plan. That nothing is truly accidental. This idea can feel comforting. If everything is planned, then suffering has purpose. Loss has meaning. Pain is justified. But there is a cost to this comfort. Because if everything is planned, then nothing is truly chosen. The illusion of fate. Fate removes responsibility. If outcomes are written, choices become decorations. Actions turn into performances in a story already decided. Yet we experience life as decision. Moment by moment. Choice by choice. We hesitate. We regret. We learn. These experiences make no sense in a world where outcomes are fixed. Free will in reality. Whether free will is absolute or limited by biology and circumstance is still debated. But one thing is clear. We respond. We adapt. We reflect. And this is enough to make responsibility meaningful. You may not choose the cards you are given. But you choose how you play them. The weight of ownership. Without fate, life becomes heavier. Success cannot be credited to divine favor. Failure cannot be excused as destiny. What happens belongs to us. This can feel frightening. But it is also empowering. Because it means change is possible. Meaning through action. If nothing is pre-written, then every act matters. Every kindness counts because it did not have to happen. Every choice carries weight because it was not guaranteed. Meaning is not assigned. It is created through action. Letting go of cosmic guarantees. There is no promise that things will turn out well. No assurance that justice will arrive later. This makes justice here more important. This makes compassion now more urgent. A quiet strength. To live without destiny is not to live without hope. It is to place hope in human hands. In effort. In care. In awareness. And that hope, though fragile, is real. Dash 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 dash. Part 9. Silence, peace, and life without belief. Meditative narration. There is a common assumption that disbelief leaves a void. That without a God, something essential is missing. But for many, the opposite is true. When belief fades, noise fades with it. The quiet after letting go. There is no longer a need to explain everything. No pressure to defend the universe. No obligation to justify suffering. Questions remain, but they are allowed to remain open. And in that openness, there is calm. Peace without surveillance. Without the sense of being constantly watched, the mind softens. Actions become sincere. Kindness is no longer a performance. Thoughts are no longer policed. There is room to breathe. Acceptance over answers. Not every mystery needs closure. Not every silence needs a voice. Some questions lose their urgency when we stop demanding answers. Acceptance is not surrender. It is balance. Living in the present. Without eternity looming ahead, this moment gains weight. This breath matters. This feeling matters. Not because it lasts forever, but because it does not. A gentle realization. You do not need cosmic significance to feel complete. You do not need ultimate purpose to live meaningfully. Being conscious, aware, present is enough. Dash 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 dash. Part 10. Being human, simply. Meditative narration. At some point, the struggle to explain everything grows tired. Not because the questions are wrong, but because life continues whether they are answered or not. And slowly, attention returns to simpler things. The ordinary miracle. Breathing. Awareness. The quiet recognition of being here. No reason is required for these moments to matter. They matter because they are experienced. No war with the universe. Without belief, there is no enemy to fight. No invisible force to appease. No cosmic drama to manage. The universe is not against you. It is not for you either. It simply is. And you are part of it. Not separate. Not special. Not insignificant. Just present. Letting the universe be silent. The universe does not speak. It does not send messages. It does not test character. It does not punish or reward. Silence is not rejection. Silence is neutrality. And neutrality is peaceful. A life without cosmic pressure. There is no expectation to fulfill a destiny. No obligation to serve a grand narrative. Life becomes lighter when it is allowed to be small. A conversation. A moment of kindness. A shared silence. Enough. The end of seeking. Eventually, the need to label oneself fades. Atheist. Believer. Skeptic. These are tools, not identities. What remains is simply a person living a human life. A gentle closing thought. You do not owe the universe meaning. You do not owe existence an explanation. You are allowed to live, to care, to rest. And when the day ends, you are allowed to let your thoughts soften. To let certainty go. To sleep. Part 11. Letting thoughts drift. Deep meditative narration. There is nothing you need to understand right now. Nothing to solve. Nothing to decide. Thoughts can come and thoughts can go. You do not need to follow them. The soft distance. You may notice ideas appearing gently. Memories. Questions. Fragments of meaning. Let them pass like clouds. No effort is required. You are not the thought. You are the space in which it appears. Releasing the need for answers. Not knowing is not a failure. It is a natural state. Most of existence exists without explanation. Trees do not ask why they grow. The night sky does not question itself. You do not need to either. The body knows how to rest. Breath slows when it is allowed to. Muscles release when they are no longer guarded. The mind settles when it stops being pushed. Rest is not something you must achieve. It happens when effort ends. Nothing is required. There is no belief you must hold. No conclusion you must reach. No truth you must defend. You are allowed to simply be. The quiet safety of the present. Right now, nothing is demanded of you. This moment is complete. Even if unfinished. Even if unclear. Dash 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 dash. Part 12. Resting in not knowing. Ultra slow sleep narration. You do not need to hold on. You do not need to understand. You do not need to agree or disagree. For now, you can rest. Letting the mind loosen. Thoughts may still appear. That is okay. You do not have to stop them. You do not have to follow them. They can move on their own. Like waves that rise and fall. There is no task. You are not here to learn something. You are not here to reach a conclusion. You are here to soften. To allow. To slow. Breathing without effort. Notice the breath. Not changing it. Not controlling it. Just noticing that it happens. In and out. Again and again. The safety of stillness. Nothing bad happens when you stop trying. Nothing is lost when you let go. The world continues without your effort. You are allowed to rest within it. A gentle reassurance. You are not behind. You are not missing anything. This moment is enough. Dash 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 dash. Part 13. Drifting. Ultra slow sleep narration. There is nothing to hold. Nothing to remember. Nothing to prepare for. Thoughts losing shape. Thoughts may still come. But they arrive without urgency. Without edges. They soften as soon as they appear. Like words spoken underwater. No direction needed. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to follow a path. Rest does not require movement. The body settles first. The body knows how to sleep. It has done this many times before. You do not need to guide it. You only need to allow it. Awareness gently fading. Sounds become distant. The room becomes less important. Time loosens. Moments stretch and blur. Nothing is missing. There is no unfinished task. No forgotten thought. Everything important can wait. Dash 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 dash. Part 14. Almost asleep. Whisper level sleep narration. Nothing needs your attention now. Softening further. The mind does not need to follow words. They can pass without meaning. Without shape. The space between words. Silence is allowed. Pauses are allowed. Nothing is missing in between. Letting the body go. The body becomes heavy. Not forced. Just resting into itself. Breath finds its own rhythm. Time is no longer important. There is no schedule. No next moment to prepare for. Only this soft drifting. Almost gone. Thoughts fade before finishing. Sentences do not need endings. Part 15. Letting go completely. Final threshold sleep narration. You do not need to listen. Fading attention. Words are only sounds now. They do not ask to be understood. They can dissolve as they arrive. No effort. No holding. No following. No thinking about thinking. The body has taken over. Breathing continues on its own. The body knows this path. It always has. Nothing to carry forward. No meaning needs to remain. No idea needs to stay. Everything can release. Quiet permission. You are allowed to sleep.